We are beautifully,
The Beautifully Melanated Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah, and as usual, I'm here with my lovely co-hosts.
I'm Kay.
And I'm Karen. And I'd just like to start today by responding to some feedback which we received for our last episode, which was dating in our 40s. So a woman by the name of Wendy, who lives in New Jersey, all the way in the US, commented. And she felt that actually we were very negative, particular Kay and myself. She felt that we talked a lot about not needing a man. And her response was that she doesn't believe it's that we don't need a man. It's just that we've had to do everything on our own because obviously Kay and I are divorced. And so she felt that it was not the right message to send to younger people. She said it's not a message that she would like to share with her own daughter, who is a teenager. And I welcome that feedback. I hear what she's saying. I do understand that from her point of view, she feels that was negative. Kay and myself, we've talked about this. We didn't think it was negative. What I was basically saying is that at this time in my life, I have done everything by myself for a long time, and I feel quite self-sufficient. So for me, having someone in my life would be a companion, would be company, and it would be out of want, not out of a need. But like I say, the listener didn't like that comment and felt that actually to need a man is not a bad thing. She believes that, needing a partner is the right way to be, because as far as I think she's concerned, I think I've got this how she meant it. As far as she's concerned, it's a partnership, and therefore needing a man doesn't make us weak. There's nothing wrong with that. And men need to be needed. So, Kay, would you like to respond to that?
I sure would. Wendy, thank you for your feedback. But I do disagree, and I stand by my point, which was I don't need a man right now. I have been married, been single. Yes, the ending of the marriage was not something I'd anticipated when I got married, but it happened. And I'm really, really happy and content in myself. And I'm happy for my daughter to see that she can be the best version of herself without a man, that she can self-actualize, reach her potential without needing a man to make it happen for her. I'd love her to have that independence. So Wendy, respectfully will disagree with you. I really, really, really don't need a man. But if a man were to come into my life and add to it and enhance it, brilliant, he's welcome. But I will not operate out of a need. Would love to hear some feedback from other listeners. What are your thoughts on this? Are we promoting a negative image, or are we being true to ourselves? And this nicely segues into tonight's episode, which is dating in your late teens, early 20s. Long topic. But we have two young people here, two young women, who are going to share with us their experience of dating as a young person. So Aaliyah, my daughter, and Tiana, who is like my daughter, are joining us to talk about their experiences. So without further ado, ladies, the floor is yours. Aaliyah is going to go first.
Hi. So when Mum approached me to be a part of it, I had to really think to myself, what is the dating scene? What is it looking like now? And I actually spoke to some friends to get some different perspectives, and the kind of general conclusion that I came to based on that was that dating nowadays is a weird mix of people getting into really serious, long-term, committed, domestic relationships, which, if you're happy, that's very wholesome and sweet, or really intense hookup culture, where it's like you do the thing and then you go and never speak to them again type of thing. And people don't really want a relationship, I guess, nowadays. And I personally don't think I fall into either category. I don't need to feel like I found the love of my life at 18. That's quite intense and that's quite insane. But I also don't really buy into hookup culture because I just don't think it's possible for me. I do know it's possible for other people and they enjoy it, and that's all power to you, do what you want. But for me, I don't think I could ever do it. Just hooking up and leaving, it's just not my thing. So I think dating's kind of weird nowadays, especially because of the internet as well and dating apps and things like that, where people are much less I guess formal about it than they were
in my generation
back in the days. Yeah.
Leah, for the benefit of the listeners, could you say a little bit more about what hookup culture is?
Well, I'll try and keep it PG, but hookup culture, I think, is most represented by Tinder, honestly. I know some people find love on Tinder like Sarah, and that's wonderful, but I feel like most people nowadays use Tinder to go swipe, swipe, swipe. Yeah, they're all right. Meet up at a place, bonk or whatever you want to call it, and then kind of not talk to each other again, maybe for like a week, and then it might turn into a friends with benefits at most. But hookup culture really is just rejecting any sign of a relationship, crushing it. It's all about not having feels, just getting the need out and calling it a day.
Thank you. So, ladies, did you have any questions for Leah before we move on and bring Tiana in?
I have a question, actually. Hello, Leah. Lovely to see you. Do you find that people meet sort of out and about through in social situations, or would you say that most of the people that you talk to about dating, and yourself included, do you find that it happens mostly online?
I'd say so. I think one thing a friend of mine brought up, which I think is also quite important, is that a lot of relationships start in school and kind of just continue because why break up? There's not really a need. But I'd say socially, no. I mean, some people will like meet people at clubs, but it doesn't usually really get into a relationship type of zone. And as far as going out, I'd also say, I guess, not that people aren't as open-minded, but people are a lot more wary nowadays of the dangers around just like going out and meeting someone. It's a lot more precautious, I'd say. I think we're a lot more concerned about safety and things like that, and it's a lot less common, I'd say, to really like blind date or anything like that.
See, I find that really interesting because I think for me it would be far more daunting to meet someone online. And that sort of that kind of virtual hookup seems a little more alien to me. Perhaps it's my age. And I'm surprised that young people aren't out and about just meeting people, because I think that, like I was saying to Kay and Sarah last week, it can be quite difficult for women of our age to meet someone through social situations, because I guess we're not out as much. Whereas I thought, young people, you're out and about, it would be easy to meet someone. But it's interesting that you're saying that you find that people tend to use online dating sites more than they do anything else. I just find that fascinating.
I feel like also there's a kind of a safety net that comes with online dating, because if you never meet in person, you can just block them and pretend it almost never happened and stuff like that. I think there's a certain comfort to it, whereas if you go in person, people might be like, oh, it's serious or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
So, Tiana, over to you. Hello, welcome. Would you introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Hey, everyone. So my name's Tiana and I'm 22 years old. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, my name's Tiana. I'm 22 years old. And with me, I feel like I prefer online dating. So it's kind of a thing where I just get to know people like through Snapchat. Or it's like when you meet someone in real life, they might ask you for your Snapchat and then you end up talking. And I think it's just easier that way, because then you can actually get a preview into what they do in their life. Whereas if you're just dating someone, you don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. And then I always make sure, like, if I'm going to meet someone new, I'll make sure I do the FaceTimes and everything. So I'm not trying to get catfished. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, like it's kind of a mixture. I do like to go out and see people as well, because then you can kind of see what they're like out and about. But then when you're online dating, you're obviously going to meet up anyway, and then do all of that. So yeah.
In terms of safety, Tiana, have you felt safe in meeting in real life? So taking it offline into in-person meeting, have you felt safe, or has there been any times when you felt unsafe?
No, I've always felt safe because I'll always tell at least my best friend where I'm going. And like I said, I always try to get to know the person first. So if someone was to say to me, oh, let's meet up in like a week, I'm going to be like, I don't know you. Or even the other day, I met someone off this dating app called Hinge, but it's kind of like dating / social media. So it's kind of mixed together. And then he was like, what do you want to do like for the first date or whatever? And I said, oh, let's just go out, get cocktails, get food or whatever. And he said, oh, wouldn't you like to go for a late night drive as well? And I was thinking, no. So from then, that kind of, like, I was just like, what the hell? Because that doesn't seem safe to me. I don't know you. You could literally kidnap me. And when I said no, he was like, oh, why not? And I said, I literally don't know you from anywhere. So I'm going to politely decline that.
Red flag. And the late night drive, did that sound like a hookup experience maybe?
Yeah, it could be. But then again, I know on social media, you'll kind of see quotes of girls saying, I love going for late night drives. So sometimes people will literally try and live off memes, is what I've noticed. And they think that what they see on the internet is exactly how real life should be. But we all know everything on the internet can be a bit fabricated. So you can't take it for 100%. Like, you can't take it for 100% facts. But it kind of just depends. Like, I know some girls probably would do that. And they might not, obviously, that they're probably not going to be a kidnapper or anything. But for me, safety comes first. And then when I did end up speaking to him on the phone and on FaceTime, he was really boring anyway. So I'm just happy that I never went there.
I was going to say, Tiana, have you ever spoken to somebody online and then when you've actually met up with them, it's like they're either a totally different person or the person is very different than the picture?
I wouldn't say different because I always FaceTime. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But one guy, he ends up being like really, really short.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then the same guy, he ended up asking me for money to buy like something from the shop. Wow. And I was just thinking, child, no. Or I think that's the only like, those are the only weird experiences I've had. But my first boyfriend, I met him through BBM. So that was ages ago. My second boyfriend was BBM as well. And the most recent partner that I had, that was through either Snapchat or WhatsApp, because there used to be these really big WhatsApp group chats and literally everyone across London or across, like, sometimes there was a few people from America, like we just all used to talk, and then obviously you gravitate towards certain people, then you start talking privately, and then
What is BBM?
Blackberry Messenger. It was the popular thing all before Snapchat, before Instagram. It was BBM. If you didn't have BBM, then I don't know.
Right. So last week, Tiana, when us ladies were talking, we felt that our pool or options for dating are quite limited in our 40s.
Yeah.
What is the pool like in your early 20s?
I think, personally, I feel like if you're just leaving it to meeting someone on the roads or like at a club or anywhere that you go, I think you're limiting your options yourself, because there's loads of people that you're just not going to run into. And I feel like maybe back in the day it was just easier because you didn't even have social media anyway, so you wouldn't have had access to all the different people that there are now. But one thing as well, I've noticed with dating apps, you can kind of filter to choose who you want. Whereas if you're not the type of person that goes up to people and approaches them, then you're just relying on who comes to you. So I like that aspect of being able to choose like what I want, at least based on looks, based on your bio and stuff. And yeah, I just feel like using online dating, you're able to meet a lot more people, so you've got a wider dating pool.
Can I ask a question, actually, Tiana?
Yeah.
Do you have a checklist of what you're looking for? So do you look for specific things? Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So I just can't see myself being with anyone that's not Caribbean. So usually if they're not Caribbean, I'm just kind of like, we can be friends. But from what I've experienced, I just always click better with Caribbean. My house at my dad's house is full Caribbean household. And then at my mum's house, my mum's obviously Jamaican and my stepdad's from Tunisia. So you've got the culture clash, and then you've got the religious clash as well. So for me, obviously growing up in both households, I think it's easier to just be one race and one religion. That's my preference. And then I like people to have a relationship with God. That's really important to me. And then obviously you've got like the other normal ones, like a stable job, respectful, funny, compassionate and stuff like that. But yeah.
Okay. And what kind of relationship, or are you looking for a relationship? What kind of relationship are you looking for? What would you say?
Now, I don't like dating. I don't like small talk. I don't like having to get to know people. I just want, literally the other day, I just prayed. I was just like, God, please, the next person that comes to my life, please let it be my husband. Because I don't like talking to multiple people, because I don't really have the time for that. Sorry.
That's so true. It's so, I find, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but small talk is just so dry. Like
it's so jarring,
isn't it? Like I can't think of even. I think 2 people I've spoken to off Tinder I've even had a full conversation with. Like, and you never get into the good stuff. Yeah, like it's never the juicy things in life. Like you don't really find out about them. It's always like, oh, so what do you do for work? Do you go to school? What are your hobby? Like it's so dry.
It's like an interview. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that as well. It's like you're interviewing me. I'm not on an interview, so I don't want to talk to you. If you can't actually hold a conversation, I prefer when people come and talk to me as if they've known me for years, and then naturally you might be like, what are you doing? And then I'll say,
Oh, we lost Tiana.
And they'll be like, oh,
3, 2, 1.
Tiana, we've lost you a little bit.
Can you hear me, Tiana?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Joys of Zoom.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, where did you hear up to?
I'm not sure. You probably best start again, Tiana, so we can hear you.
Yeah, that's fine. I was saying I don't like small talk because it feels like an interview, but I'd rather someone, like just talk to me like as if you've known me forever, and then naturally, once you're doing that, you'll naturally find out about the person. So we could be talking, and then in the middle of the conversation, they'll just be like, what are you doing? And then I could be like, I'm at work. And then they'll be like, oh, what do you work as? And then naturally the conversation flows rather than you actually just asking a million questions at the start, because that's really boring.
It's a dead end, I think.
You made a good point, though. You made a good point, Tiana, that I think when it comes to online dating is a plus. I know I found when I was online dating as well, the selection process was actually quite good. And I know it's quite kind of, don't know, picky, but the fact you can actually filter down, exactly what you want, exactly the kind of person that you want is helpful, because then you're just going for what you want. You're not having to go and meet somebody and they're not what you thought they were and all that other jazz. So yes, I think that's good.
Aaliyah, do you have a checklist?
Not really. I think because I guess I find it hard to be picky at times. I don't know. I have standards. Like there are things that are an absolute must. Like you have to be respectful, especially to your mum. I feel like if you have not a bad relationship with your mum, but if you badmouth your mum, at some point it reeks of misogyny. So being respectful, being kind, having some sort of ambition in life, I think, as well. I think a lot of the reason I struggled to find people I was interested in intellectually was because I am very ambitious. I dream big, and I think I can't really talk to someone who doesn't have that same drive. I feel like it kind of causes a bit of distance. I'd say funny, but like I feel like that's an obvious one. Like, you gotta be funny, you gotta make me laugh, you gotta make me happy. And unfortunately, I'm a big romantic, which nowadays feels like it's kind of dying out.
No, it's not, Aaliyah. Don't give up. It's not dying out. You
See, we
you
are
will meet
positive.
that person. No, you'll meet that person. I think romance is not dead. I think there's romance, isn't there? Then there's like, being romantic isn't being gullible, if that makes sense. You can be kind and loving without being an absolute doormat.
Yeah, I feel like that's something as well. I feel like nowadays it kind of romantic stuff and like mushy stuff just kind of met with some level of suspicion. Like, okay, so what do you want from
early
me?
on? Yes, early on, people that go, "Oh, I love you." It's like, you've met me once. That is concerning.
Definitely.
Is there a lot of that for you guys? Do you think yourself and Tiana, is there a lot of that kind of, I've met you once and now I love you because I want to get into bed with you? Is that?
Yeah, the only person I spoke to from Tinder.
I know that a few people have said it, but I haven't really experienced it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring in the Caribbean bit into it. Tiana and Aaliyah, you're raised by Jamaican mums. What was the idea or notion given to you about dating? At what age could you date? At what age could you say, I'm ready to date? What messages did you receive about dating?
If we weren't so close, I think I'd cry having to answer that in front of you. I don't know. I think I was very blessed that you were quite chill about it in your own way. So there was never a hard, like, no, you can't date or anything like that, or like, no date until you're 30. I actually got that more from my brother than you. But I think you had a certain level of, there's class and there are rules that need to be met and there is respecting, especially with my brother, because he's much more of a dater than I am. But you had rules, like, door open kind of policy, which I can get behind and I can agree with. But I think you were quite calm about it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Tiana?
Well, my first boyfriend was at 14 and that didn't go well. I got grounded. So, yeah, my mum wasn't too happy about the idea. When I got older and I got into my second relationship, there was one time we was all going to church for New Year's and she was like, he's not allowed in the house. So he had to stay out of the house until we were finished getting ready to actually go to church. And then after, I think she started warming up to the idea because I don't know, like we would always be together. So I think she now wanted to meet him and see what he was like properly. And then, yeah, it started getting easier from there. But at first it was hell.
Very similar to my own, Tiana. My father was very much, you cannot study man and book. So as long as you were in school, he wasn't even entertaining it. I'm going to bring Karen in. I'm going to ask Karen, any questions for the young ladies, Karen? Any idea? You're a mother of daughters as well. What have you passed on to them?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say it was lovely to hear Aaliyah talk about her experience of discussing dating and relationships with you, and she felt that you were really relaxed. And yeah, it was just really nice to hear that relationship between you and that rapport that you have. I should have invited my daughter on. She'd have a lot to say, I'm sure. So I was a little bit like your dad, Kay, in thinking that it would be better if she waited to date until around about the age of 18. I used 18 as a kind of ballpark figure because I think that dating also requires an amount of maturity, emotional maturity, right? So that was the standpoint that I came from. It's not just the physical, is it? It's the emotional impact as well. And I felt that perhaps at 18, she would be better equipped to kind of cope with that side of things. So that's what I said to her. I don't know how well received that was, but that's what I said. I don't think I have
a boyfriend yet, Karen.
I've not. No, she has been on a couple of dates. She has called and said, you know, I've been on a couple of dates, Mum, but not well. She hasn't sort of given any more information than that. So perhaps I need to pry. So she's at university, and so she did talk about, you know, hookups. I think as Aaliyah mentioned earlier, there is some of that going on. It's that uni culture, I guess, for some people, not for everyone. And she also has a friend who is Christian, and so doesn't date because she wants to be married before. I mean, I guess, you know, she still wants to meet someone, but she's looking for a husband. A bit like what Tiana said, actually. So yeah, I guess different people looking for different things, and they have a different approach. And I just think it's really interesting to hear, you know, what dating in your late teens and 20s is compared to us dating in our 40s. We'll have to have another one, Kay. Dating in our 50s.
We have more sauce in our 40s, or even in our 20s. I feel like we had more style. And
yeah, because by the time you're 40, you develop like a sense of self and like social skills.
But even in my 20s, there was no dry talk, because it was all bang, 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 bang. There was no dryness.
Oh, really?
You not dating.
Well, maybe that's because you was dating in person.
And in Jamaica. And if you know anything about Jamaican men, they got the sauce.
Can't you zoom?
Okay. So what do you consider, Aaliyah? Tiana said she wouldn't consider dating outside of her race or culture. Would you?
Yes, but it's tricky, is what I would say. I definitely agree with it's kind of just easier because there's a certain amount of understanding there. Like, I remember coming up to my first ever like real date, which was, that memory, bad time. But I remember leading up to it, Mum, I thought you were relatively fair, you know, in a protective way, but, you know, you had certain rules and things about where we would go, kind of things like that, because you wanted me to be local, you wanted me to be safe and things. And the guy wasn't very understanding of that. And my mum wanted to say hello to him first before we like went off. And he thought that was really strange and like, oh, why am I meeting your parents? It's so serious. And I was like, that's calm to me. That makes sense because you want to know who, you know, your daughter's spending the evening with, and, you know, coming up to a safety thing, you want to be able to identify a person if something bad happens. So I think that makes total sense. And the weirder thing about it was that the week before, when he'd asked me on the date, we hadn't spoken in like 2 years. And he had asked me if I wanted to go on a date and or be his girlfriend. And I was like, how is that not as serious as meeting my mum? So I think there's a certain amount of understanding that comes from having the same culture. But I do think it's possible. Maybe that's just because I'm raised in a very white area. So it would be hard to find someone who's also Caribbean here.
Sure.
Maybe I've had to widen my horizons a bit. But I think it's possible. It's just very difficult. Especially in my brother's experience, there's been a lot of not seeing eye to eye because culturally it's so different. But there have been people I've met where I felt not only do I get along with them, they would fit into the family and the dynamic and the kind of culture we have and the kind of foods we like to eat and things like that. So I do think it's possible and it's something I am open to, but there's definitely some maneuvering that comes with it.
Yeah.
Tiana, when you say that you'd like to date someone who is Caribbean, do you mean that he himself has to be from the Caribbean, or do you mean Caribbean parentage, or what did you mean?
Yeah, so either he can be from the Caribbean or Caribbean parentage, because it's just a personal thing that I have spoken to other people from different races, different cultures, but nothing, like no one talks Caribbean. I just feel like there's certain stuff that either you have to learn or adapt when you're dating outside of your culture, but when you're dating in your culture and within your race, there's like a mutual understanding and everyone kind of knows what's going on. You don't have to expect like anything really, because everyone just knows.
You know, I find that really interesting because my husband was Jamaican, born in Jamaica, and I am of Jamaican parents but born here. And I found that for me personally, there was a huge gap in culture because although we're both, I guess, Jamaican, because I was born here, my upbringing was very different. My experience was very, very different. We just didn't have the same points of reference. So I would even narrow it down more and say, for me, I tend to find that I gel more with people who've got Caribbean parents but were born here. So it's just interesting that you said, that you find as long as they're Caribbean, you're good. You're cool with that. I just thought it was interesting what you said.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. I haven't personally come across that, but if I do, I'll let you know.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Karen, that's really relatable for me, I think, because there's even times where I feel out of touch with my own culture, strangely, because I was born and raised in England.
Sure.
So sometimes things that I think are very, I don't know how to phrase this, maybe gateway Jamaican things, my white friends will find odd or new and fascinating. Like, I remember once in a drama class, we got asked what our favourite food is. I don't know why, drama's weird. But we got asked what our favourite food was, and I said cornmeal porridge, and everyone looked at me like I was from an alien planet. And it's like, for me, that's a basic Jamaican thing.
Standard, isn't it?
That's standard. But they found it really strange. But then if I were to date someone born and raised in the Caribbean, I think I'd have to call mum for help. I don't think I know what to do. Because it's I think it's maybe that's a mixed kid thing as well. But I feel very British. I'm not necessarily proud of it because, colonialism and the mess that is our history. But I was born and raised in England, so I feel very British. And sometimes it's almost like if I were to date someone Jamaican, I guess maybe I'd feel like I'd have to prove myself or something. Whereas if I'm dating a white person, I'm the interesting one, I guess. I'm the one with the cool culture or whatever. Yeah.
Actually, just wanted to ask you something about that, because you said being of mixed parentage yourself. Would you, so just let me recap, did you say that you wouldn't be open to dating somebody who was white and English, or did you say that you would? Don't remember what you said.
I absolutely would.
You would? Okay, that's fair. Okay, all right. So you're just open, really, to
and I would struggle with that. I know. We've had this conversation recently about grandkids. Mum's been saying a lot about how she'd really like black grandkids, and I'm like, I can't guarantee that because I'm very open.
Why would you struggle with that, Kate? That's interesting. Why would you struggle?
Again, culture. I remember years ago, I was spending the night with Tiana and her mum, who is one of my closest friends.
Fabulous.
And I woke up in the morning and Tiana said, "Oh, Auntie, what do you want for breakfast?" And I was like, I can saltfish, cornmeal porridge. My girl can throw down in the kitchen. She was a teenager.
Side note, Tiana is a great cook.
She can cook.
Guys.
And Tiana made just the most gorgeous breakfast. And you know what my thought was? In my old age, if she got with my son, I'd never be hungry.
It's interesting you say that because Erin eats mostly takeaways.
It's not for Erin, it's for me.
Oh. You want to be looked after in your old age. That's what you're after.
I want to be looked after well in my old age. So now I'm just going to leave the country and be done with it.
Oh, bless you.
I do have one last question for you, Tiana and Aaliyah. And it's looping back to where we started. We have about 5 minutes left. Do you feel at your age that you need a man to fulfill your potential, to follow your ambition and pursue your passions?
No.
Aaliyah's face.
Absolutely not. I think if anything, because I've grown up watching you do everything that you wanted to do if not with more ease without a man in your life.
Word.
I'd rather not. I don't feel the need for a partner at all. I don't feel that I need someone to do anything for me. If they're adding something to my life, that's like great. But my life is pretty fulfilled and happy and full of love as is.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm the same as well. Obviously, like my mum, she was raising me as well without my dad. So I've watched her do everything, and she's been my main role model in life. So, and also other people in my family as well. So I don't need a man either. But there's sometimes you're in a position where you literally do not want a relationship. So that was me in 2019 and 2020. I just did not want a relationship at all because I was getting over my ex and I just wanted to refine myself kind of. And then now I'm in a really good position. I'm strong. I know what I want and I know what I don't want. So I'm not going to settle for anything just for the sake of a relationship. So if the right guy came along now, then yeah, I'd happily be in a relationship, but you don't need a man. If they're there and they benefit you, then that's good, but I'm still going to be good on my own.
And I think that, you know, before you get into a relationship, and it's kind of what Karen was saying as well about emotional maturity and things, you kind of need to have a sense of self, because otherwise it's really easy to get swept up in toxic relationships and things like that. And I think the childhood that you've given me and teenagehood and into early adulthood has given me a lot more self-esteem and self-worth and things like that I think are really needed in a relationship to stand your ground. And I think sometimes I see other people who may not have had that from their mothers particularly, and I can just see how they get so caught up in the relationship and you can almost watch the timeline of them losing themselves. And I think I'd rather be me authentically all the time, feel happy, not feel that I have to change or anything like that to be happy in a relationship. And I think that comes with growing up and emotional maturity.
Yeah. Wow. Daughter of a therapist.
Very well said. Very, very wise words from such young ladies. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, well said, ladies. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Lovely to have you on both. And we look forward to hearing about your journey into love and relationships and adulthood. Of course, I'll be at the weddings with great food.
Tiana will be catering.
Tiana will not cater her own wedding. No. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Instagram. I'm the face behind not the face, but I'm the person who runs the Instagram, and Mum almost always forgets to say the tag.
That's true. So say it for the listeners.
At Beautifully Melanated Podcast on Instagram, and the email is the same at Gmail.
Thank you.
Flexible.
All right. Thanks, guys. I hope you've enjoyed
you.
listening, and we'll see you later. Bye.
We are beautifully